guest today is Jon Helminiak. I've worked on that. I'm going to get that. And John, you're with the Heritage Center of Wisconsin. Where's that located at?
The Aviation Heritage Center of Wisconsin is located at Sheboygan County Memorial Airport in Sheboygan Falls, Wisconsin. And we are a nonprofit organization that was founded about 12 years ago by the local EAA Chapter 766. We are now an independent nonprofit organization that specializes in preserving and disseminating the aviation history of Wisconsin, and also some aviation history that may not be necessarily local to Wisconsin, but has a Wisconsin tie. And we also help have programs that help encourage young people to pursue careers in aviation, which, as all you gentlemen know, can be a lot more than just flying an airplane. It can be in any number of different aviation-related fields.
What are some of those programs, John? I mean, the staffing of, the aviation industry has been a theme for years, and it just seems to be increasing. So how are you helping?
Well, we try to partner as much as we can with a lot of the local youth agencies in Sheboygan County, the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts, the local YMCA and the YMCA camps, hopefully the boys clubs and girls clubs, to have summer camp programs and seminars for them that talk about the various types of career paths that a young person can take in aviation. We're fortunate to have on our board of directors people who are fairly accomplished in the aviation world, including Greg Cahan, former Air Force One pilot, a couple of United Airlines pilots. So we feel that we can give young people a pretty good idea of what the aviation world is all about and enthusiastically encourage them to pursue one of those fields. We also have a simulator in our facility, a full-motion Redbird, as a matter of fact, FMX simulator that we lease to Lakeland College, which has a flight school right next door to us, and so many of their students will come to the Aviation Heritage Center to utilize that flight simulator as part of their pilot training program.
Wonderful. So what other things do you have at your facility?
Well, we have quite a variety of simulator cockpits that were used by the military, including a very rare T-28 simulator cockpit. We have a T-37 Tweet simulator cockpit, and we also have a T-28 static exhibit, which we dedicated last September 20th. It's the only T-28 in the world that has the markings of the Royal Lao Air Force. It was we found this T-28 and the local EAA chapter restored it, and we put it on static display to honor the Hmong who flew that aircraft during the U.S. Secret War in Laos during the Vietnam conflict. And those individuals are familiar with the history of Vietnam, and particularly the United States' clandestine involvement in Laos, know that the Hmong were highly, highly respected pilots by our American aviators, flying that T-28 in low-level ground support of Vang Pao's troops to stop the communist incursion that was coming through Laos to get into South Vietnam. So this is the only static exhibit of its type in the world that honors those Hmong pilots, and we still have Hmong families from around the country coming to see that exhibit, and they're very, very grateful that we chose to honor the pilots in that capacity. And we did it not only to educate Americans about why the Hmong are in this country, but also to educate the young Hmong about why their parents and grandparents are in this country, because there's a misconception, if you don't know anything about the Hmong history, that the Hmong came here on their own volition, as immigrants do, and that's certainly not the case. When their country got overrun by the communist forces in 1974-75, many of them were evacuated by us, but not enough, and most of them chose to flee to freedom via Thailand, but a lot of them didn't make it. So that's an exhibit that we have. And we have right now, gentlemen, also plans to commemorate North Central Airlines, which I'm sure those of you that are from Wisconsin or anywhere,
the classic airline,
sure, across the Great Lakes, remember. North Central Airlines has a very, very proud 35-year history. They were started in the small town of Clintonville, Wisconsin, by the four-wheel drive truck company back in the early 1940s, and eventually became Wisconsin Central Airlines, flying Beech 18 aircraft, and in the late 40s became North Central Airlines. And almost anybody who was born and raised in the Great Lakes area remembers in the 40s, 50s, 60s, and throughout the 70s flying on North Central Airlines. Airlines because they were the flagship carrier for our region for all of those years. Being the Aviation Heritage Center of Wisconsin, we feel it's important to commemorate Wisconsin's aviation history, and certainly North Central Airlines is a big part of that, and there is no exhibit anywhere in the country that commemorates and talks about the proud history of that airline. So what we plan to do is to acquire a DC-3, preferably by charitable donation or a combination of a cash gift and charitable donation, or if we have to, we'll pay cash, and get it to the Aviation Heritage Center of Wisconsin and restored into the flagship colors of North Central Airlines circa around the late 1950s. And that will be the cornerstone exhibit for the North Central Airlines Commemorative exhibit. The North Central Airlines alums, many of whom are still alive and live in the Great Lakes region, are very, very supportive of this effort. In fact, they've said, John, we're really glad that the Aviation Heritage Center of Wisconsin is undertaking this project because it was a great airline to work for. It was a great airline to work for. We have great memories, and it was successful for 35 years until it became Republic in 1979 when, unfortunately, for many of us who are into nostalgic aviation, Herman, the duck, the great North Central Airlines logo ceased to exist. So we want to bring Herman back, resurrect him, and the reason we chose a DC-3 to be the cornerstone exhibit for the North Central Airlines display is that North Central Airlines flew the largest number of DC-3s of any other airline during its time period. They actually had 32 of them in their fleet once upon a time.
One of my friends got his career started with DC-3 with North Central. He's just a classic aviator.
It's and almost every airline, if they existed prior to 1950, had DC-3 airlines in their fleet. Not only that, the DC-3 or the C-47 is a very, very well-known and probably considered, as you all know, the best aircraft ever built. So we hope to acknowledge the proud history of the DC-3 as well. By the way, I should add that Julie Clark, who's going to perform here at AirVenture, is a former North Central / Republic Airlines captain, and she's agreed to be the honorary chair for this exhibit, and she's very, very excited about it.
Nice. Have you tried to track down any of the original 32 DC-3s that they had?
That's a great question. We have, and we've only found one that actually flew with North Central Airlines, and it happens to be at Chicago Skydive Airport outside of, or in Ottawa, Illinois, a little bit west of Chicago, and we went down and took a look at that. It's going to be a little bit tough to restore that aircraft into variable flying condition to get it to our facility in Sheboygan. But clearly, if we can find one that does have a North Central Airlines history, it's going to have a lot more meaningful to the North Central alums who were a part of that aircraft.
Is that airplane for sale?
I spoke to the owner in Dallas, and in his good old Texan accent, he said, John, you just make me an offer on that airplane. But the problem is we have to find out if that aircraft's in variable condition. It's pretty rough right now. It's been sitting in a field for 9 years.
It'll need some work.
It's going to need some work. And trucking a DC-3 is problematic, no matter how far you have to truck it. Taking it apart, reassembling it, getting the various permits you need to transport something that large over the road through the various states is difficult. So the ideal scenario is to find one that's in variable condition at a price that a nonprofit organization like ours can afford, or preferably have the donor donate it, and just fly it right into Sheboygan County Memorial Airport. And then we can begin work on the restoration and painting it in North Central Airlines colors and getting the interior back to the way it was in the 50s.
John, you mentioned earlier that you want to make sure that people understand some of the Wisconsin pioneers in aviation. We just have a short time frame left here, but is there one person that stands out in terms of their contribution to aviation in Wisconsin?
Well, there is, and that's a very good question. Many people don't know that the state of Wisconsin was home to the 5th person in history to successfully make a solo crossing of the Atlantic Ocean. We all know that Charles Lindbergh was the first, but there was a gentleman by the name of Felix Waitkus who was Lithuanian by heritage and happened to live in Kohler, Wisconsin, and he along with the engineer of Kohler Company, a fellow by the name of Anton Bratz, customized a Lockheed Vega to fly from Wisconsin to New York, and then from New York, hopefully on to Vilnius, Lithuania. The flight was underwritten by the Lithuanian government and many wealthy Lithuanian donors, and old Felix Vaikas took off in 1934 on his flight, and he did make it across the Atlantic Ocean, but ran out of fuel over Ireland and crash landed there. But although he never made it to his homeland of Lithuania, the country still honored him as a hero, and even to this day you can find postage stamps with his likeness on it and a picture and a rendering of the Lockheed Vega, and also a currency as well. So to Lithuania, Felix Vaikas from good old Kohler, Wisconsin, is an aviation hero, and we count him as one of Wisconsin's own.
What about your website, John?
AHCW.org. That's Alpha Hotel Charlie Whiskey.org.
And you have a facility. Is it open to the public?
It is open to the public. We're closed Monday and Tuesdays, but we're open from 10 to 6 all of the other days, and we have a wonderful group of volunteers who will welcome anybody who shows up to tour you through the facility. Come on and take a look at the exhibits. Come on and take a look at the Mung T-28, and almost everybody that stops by is impressed with what we have to offer there. We like to think of ourselves as the third aviation museum in Wisconsin. We've got, of course, the wonderful EAA here in Oshkosh, and we've got the Bong Museum up in Superior, and then there's the Aviation Heritage Center in southeastern Wisconsin at Sheboygan.
Well, that is excellent. I'm just going to have to take a road trip because I don't live that far.
Yeah, a lot of people don't.
Thank you for coming.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you for coming in. We've talking to Jon Helminiak.
There you go.
I'm sorry. Of the Sheboygan Falls Aviation Heritage Center of Wisconsin, and you're listening to EAA Radio.
It's a worldwide aviation event that's way beyond what I ever dreamed it would ever be. Thanks, Paul, for everything. This is EAA Radio.